Hello, everybody. Welcome to the UGASports Live podcast. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I am joined by Dayne Young and Jim Donnan, the Hall of Famer, former Georgia head coach. And the number one reason you are watching the show today is to get his insight and his takes and hopefully a story or a joke or two. We'll have to get back to having Coach Donnan do his joke of the week. Hint, hint, Coach. You need to get on the stick there. So we're going to get back to talking about the Georgia football team and upcoming spring practice. But first, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Academia Brewing Company, Your Pie, the great pizza joint, Athens Ford, and of course our friends over at Dead Soxy. I am at home today. I'm not over where I should be, which is at our friends in Classic City Eats. And I really want to be there because the weather's going to be perfect today, and they have a new outside seating area. But they just laid down grass. They got a big area out there that you'll just absolutely enjoy. Great place to go catch a Braves game if they ever have baseball again. And, watch tennis, watch anything on the big screens there. They'll have them outdoors as well. But check out our friends over at Classic City Eats. I wish I was there today, but I got to catch a flight. I'm going to be heading up to Indianapolis for our coverage of the NFL Combine, which brings me to my first question for Coach. Coach, a record number of Georgia players will be in Indianapolis this week. A ton of guys up there. I'm excited about it. I know you are too, but who do you think is really going to shine out? Because you've been saying for years, wait till this guy hits the combine, wait till that guy hits the combine. I can't keep up with all of them, but who do you think is really going to do wonders for their potential draft status in Indianapolis this coming week when they get in front of the coaches, the scouts up there and do their drills and do their 40 times and do their lifts and do their interviews?
Yeah, I think probably got Devontae White got a little bit of a head start with a good Senior Bowl workout that really has moved him up, and people, understand a lot about what he can do.
Nope.
May have lost Coach's internet there for a second. And a really good point about Devontae Wyatt that was going on there. So we'll get Coach back in here in a second when we can.
You got me.
Coach, internet froze on you for a minute.
You mentioned Devontae White had done a good job on his in the Senior Bowl there.
Yeah, I mean, I lost you for some reason. Every time I move a different room, it looks good, and then I get the worst. So I'm paying my bills, I can tell you that. But George Piggins, just the fact that there's so many different ideas about why he played and why he didn't play when he was hurt and all that, after his leg. But he's just a spectacular player that I think will show – kind of like Connolly did when he was there, all the testing he did. But there, I think also Cook's ball catching skills will really surface there. They'll see that. But overall, I've never had as many guys contact me going into the draft, maybe since I was in Oklahoma, that I have lately here, just asking me about these kids off the field and things like that, because they do that. They check people out, and I'm sure they're doing
Yeah, I get those too. When have people will reach out to me and say, "Hey, when this guy had his ankle injured in high school, what did how bad was it? When this guy was wearing a wrist brace in this game, how bad was that? When this guy had a run-in with the police, what really happened?" So you'll get the scouts. They do some serious background checks, but they really want to go over you with a fine-tooth comb on any previous injuries. When they're going to spend millions of dollars, they want to be sure that none of that stuff's going to pop back up again. Then they'll call me and ask me football questions like they do Coach, when they're like, "Hey, Coach, what does this guy do?" Stuff like that. But they reach out to me as a media person, as a guy who's known some of these players since they were in 8th grade, 9th grade. What happened in this situation? What happened in that one? And that stuff comes up in those interviews.
Sure. I mean, there's so many different ways that they can check you out, starting with the physical and then the test and then obviously the interviews that they have with you. But I really think that the one guy that we've always talked about, that it was kind of a sleeping giant involved in the system, so to speak, but just 44 coming out there, he's going to be he's going to be a freak on the test, and he can play a lot of different positions. And Anderson probably won't make the combine, but hopefully these legal issues will get behind him. He would be another guy that would jump out there. But just when you think about 6 years ago compared to now, where I think Isaiah McKenzie was the only guy drafted in Kirby's first draft, and now all these guys, and there's going to be some free that get a shot. So, and what happens is every high school player in America dreams about being in the draft. So they watch this. This is a very big deal to watch the combine and the draft. And you all of a sudden you keep hearing Georgia, like you used to hear Alabama all the time. And you'll hear it again with Alabama's group this year. But development of players and makes it a lot easier to recruit a freshman player when they see so many of these guys playing early and then developing into big time players. You take a guy like Tyndall, didn't play very much.
Yeah, that's a guy that kind of came on.
Hopefully we'll have Daniel Jeremiah really give us a good rundown after you screw it all up over in the combine with all your different interviews. But they'll be saying, hey, here comes Radi Nabulsi. What does he know? He knows everything. So they'll be, yeah. I've already told several of these head coaches to take you out to get something to eat. So you take a real scoop on it. And he's the grand poobah of Georgia Scoop. So, but it really is from a coach perspective. If I'm a pro coach or pro assistant coach or a scout, is a very good way, kind of like you going to a Rivals camp or going to an Under Armour camp. You can just evaluate these kids in so many ways. Another thing that I would point out that we brought to surface here a couple of years ago is we had an abundance of guys that one year, like Holyfield and people that came out and ended up being drafted. And the next year, Kirby decided to have a combine of his own here on campus just to show our players exactly what they would have to do and how they their stats and their results, how they compared to guys that got drafted, just so they would know that have something substantive besides somebody in their hometown saying, hey, you need to come out, you can get drafted and all that. And it really has helped us as far as guys coming out early. If you just look at last year's defensive backs, every one of them made it except the kid from the junior college that
DJ Daniel.
Yeah, so they all made a team, and so it ended up being a good move by them. But I think that was smart by Kirby looking forward, and we'll have another combine here this spring. Beside the pro day workout that the guys that declared will have, that'll be good too.
Radi, when it comes to doing the NFL draft previews, Brent Rollins and I are going through each of the Georgia players and saying the order that we think they're going to get drafted in. It's on our YouTube channel. It's on the DawgVent. And I texted Coach and I said, just looking at this from a media member's perspective, if I'm a GM, I'm saying this is probably not the greatest draft. And maybe I'm clouded by quarterbacks here. It's definitely not a great quarterback draft. But Coach texted me back and he said, well, it's a good thing you're not an NFL GM.
Yeah, well, hey, you don't need to tell us these private. I think y'all do a great job with that, but I think your future definitely your future's definitely in being over there at the Grady School, and you're certainly moving up there. But that was a good little quote you had. But
I know that was a private text, but I was just like, dang, Coach. I mean, you got the network, you got the people. This is a strong draft, stronger than I realized, obviously.
It is strong quarterback-wise. I mean, you don't even know if one's going to go in the first round. Maybe Malik Williams or Pickett, but Malik Willis. But we'll see how that goes. But it really is.
Yep, he keeps hanging up there. Anyway, I will be up there in Indianapolis this coming week to get an interview with each of the guys that are in Indianapolis, talk to them. We always like to find out who they've had interviews with, what their last comments at Georgia were like. If it's a guy that left early, what went into his decision? How close was he to deciding to coming back? There's a lot of guys that we haven't spoken to since they declared early. But we have guys we haven't spoken to since, the national championship game. So it's always good to go up there and get some of these interviews. And then if there's time, if it's a longer media period and some of the questions die down, I'll usually try to get like an exit interview and ask the guys, hey, what was your favorite game? What was your favorite memory at UGA? Who was the toughest guy you went up against? Who in this room gave you fits? And that's when you get into some really good stuff. When you have a offensive lineman go, yeah, this guy's coming up behind me. This over here from Tennessee, he was a monster. He threw me around a few times. And because now all of a sudden they're in this brotherhood. It's no longer Georgia versus Florida versus Alabama. They're all guys trying to make it to the NFL. And it's a neat atmosphere there. I mean, a lot of people are like, why would you go cover the combine? Those guys are gone. I'm like, they're gone as of, a few weeks ago, they were playing for a national title for you. So let's kind of get some of their exit interview stuff and some of their thoughts about hey, the guys that you're leaving, who should Georgia fans be excited about? If you're Zamir White, who in that running back room do you really think is going to step up next year and get his take versus James Cook's?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important here is that you give us that, because some of these guys don't get a lot of interviews. But I would think, on the other hand, a guy like Hutchinson, who everybody's got in the first three, the DN from Michigan, they're going to ask him who gave him trouble, and he's going to say Jamari Salyer.
Yes.
That's going to help Salyer. I mean, that tape is invaluable to him in that game, playing against a top three guy, the whole game. That was impressive. But I was going to say the comparison here that for some reason on the internet I lost it, but just the fact that some schools go after players and other schools don't, and you don't understand why, and some people would question that. It's the same thing with these pro scouts and these pro general managers and these pro coaches. Why would you go after him and compared to this? But you got 32 different teams. They got needs. They got new coaching staffs. They got the up there, you've got the situation where the guys can become free agents. A lot of different things involved there. The salary cap, even though this guy looks like he's a good free agent, how's he going to affect our salary cap? So a lot of that's involved in the pro game, and it's becoming even more prevalent in the college game because of NIL. I mean, what can your program present NIL wise compared to somebody else? And I think these collective type deals where people are getting their money in, and Dayne can tell us more about that. He's doing some research on it. As usual, he's behind the scenes on what's really saying in college football. But the draft itself is just changes the whole kid's future. Who you going with the right team is so important too. I mean, you look at McCole Hardeman. He went with the exact right team who could fit his needs. I mean, he's not an every down receiver from the standpoint of throw him 100 passes, catch 100, but he catches just enough and runs just enough reverses and returns punts and everything. It was a perfect mix for him to get with Andy Reid and get with that program. And I'm really happy for him this the success that he's had, because he's a guy that was not a natural receiver coming out of high school. Could have played defensive back. He was a quarterback in high school, and he really has honed his skills in there. But I can really see James Cook just going up there, and everybody's going to just wow. I mean, you just don't find a guy that can play running back that can do all the things he can. And then Zamir will help himself just by his complete attitude and his story of what kind of kid he is too.
Coach, how coy do teams get in terms of talking to these players? Because you heard Radi say that in some of the interviews that we do, that he asked, hey, which teams are talking to you in the draft process? But then oftentimes we'll hear a player say, I got drafted by a team that I never even had a phone call from. That I ended up on the Colts and they never talked to me.
Yeah, I don't know really what happens on that, because somebody said, boy, these guys really talked to me so much. I thought I was going, and then all of a sudden, like you say, never heard. a lot of it's just how the cookie crumbles on the draft where, who's the best guy left. And I know a lot of times, I wouldn't say 100, but maybe 10 or 15 times I've gotten texts right during the draft when a team's coming up 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 more they're going to be drafted. And say, what about this kid right here? We've heard this, we've heard that. And if they're asking me, they're asking other people, you know what I'm saying? And how do you compare this guy for at the same position of this other guy that played for so-and-so? So it's a lot of down to the wire there about your need, but the best player available. And some teams have a board that have guys ranked a whole lot higher than another. And a lot of it has to do with maybe the scout that's looking at him or the coach. But I think one thing that's really important to me was when the head coach comes out and checks you out. I mean, there's a pretty good chance. I'm going to tell you, when we have our pro day here, I would bet on the over-under. I bet there's at least 20 head coaches here on our pro day just because you got 11 or 12 draft choices. It'd be crazy not to. I mean, they don't need to be playing golf when they can look at 20 pro prospects. So I think we'll have, 11 or 12. I think we'll have, I might be wrong there, but I would say between the general manager and head coaches, they'll be stacked up out here when we have our pro day.
It seemed like Joe Judge with the Giants was taking all the Georgia players. Well, now he's back with the Patriots, another team that historically takes a lot of Georgia players. And so I could see New England loading back up. And Bill Belichick will be one of the guys here. Yeah,
Bill likes to come here. He likes Kirby. They got a relationship, and he'll say to me, "Hi, Jim," and then walk off. So he'll be driven. I mean, he wants to go out there and run the drills. I remember when he and Mac Patricia worked out a couple of our linebackers right in front of everybody. I mean, you wouldn't expect the head coach to go out there and work them out, but that's just the way he is. He loves ball and he loves the grind of it. So he'll be here. He'll be here for sure.
Yeah, there's great stories about these head coaches coming in and pulling a guy aside, and then sure enough, 6 weeks later, you find out that they took him in the 5th or 6th. But what I'm really excited about this year for Georgia is I've gone to these before and had 5, 6, 8, 9 guys at the combine, and they get 1 or 2 first-round draft picks, and then a lot of guys fill in the 4th through 7th. I think it's going to be a front-end heavy draft for Georgia. I'm really excited about see where some of these big names are going, and knowing that first night could be big, and then that second day could be very big too. So it should be pretty loaded.
And here's the thing about it that I would have just put the cherry on the top of the sundae. The way the salary structure is now for the fans, it used to be, the first round draft choice, the first guy like Matthew Stafford got a massive contract, and then he's had. But what you have now is it's all structured by the league. That the first guy gets this all the way down to 32, and then once you go into the next round, it goes down, and you're basically in that contract for 4 years, unless after the 3 years they'll go ahead and like Murray right now, the quarterback for the Cardinals, trying to get them to give him a long-term deal. So it's really important to get drafted as high as you can to get your money up front, but the big deal for you is to get that second contract. Once you get to that point, then it's Katie bar the door. It can be whatever your market is based on how you performed and what's needed there. If not, you can go as a free agent. So it's a lot of difference between first and third round money and all that. But I don't feel sorry for these guys. They're going to make a lot of money. There's no question about that. But the way the players' union set up, the union people were mad that they've been playing 5 or 6, 7 years, and the guy's never played is making more money than he is before he even comes in. So they got that structured up, and we're seeing it in baseball. But the football players are the same thing. They want revenue sharing. And with these teams, because all the billions of dollars they're making off TV, and so to me, it's a player-driven league, though. You got to have players. Teams that got players win, and the teams that don't get their ass beat.
Yeah, Same in college. We're seeing that now.
One final point before you transition in what I think is going to be sponsors, Roddy. But Coach had mentioned something about Isaiah McKenzie being the one drafted Georgia player in Kirby Smart's first year. And to see how quickly that's shifted, just some of the guys that played for Kirby Smart are now NFL superstars. The Nick Chubbs, DeAndre Swift is one of the best running backs. Andrew Thomas is a great NFL offensive lineman. You can go on and on and on. And that's just all on the offensive side of the ball. I didn't even discuss defense. That's such a quick transformation in terms of just getting talent into Georgia and they're prepared for the league. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up Kirby's butt. He doesn't need me to. But, like, that's a remarkable job that the UGA has done in a short amount of time.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding. Everybody talks about these recruiting rankings, but the recruiting rankings get you how you develop them. And if you develop them and then they go on to pro prospects, I know Radi talks about 5-star guys or the ones that they think can't miss are going to be drafted and all that. And for the most part, they're pretty good at rating them. But it really is remarkable when you look at all the things that have happened here, whether we've talked about facilities and all that, but just the fact that you've got this many guys, and it's going to be very, very impressive on the combine and the fact that when they have the draft, when everybody's talking about whether it's Mel Kiper or Daniel Jeremiah, just the abundance of players that Georgia has. And the bottom line, the thing that I know that Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, whoever the coach is, they know if a guy played at Georgia that he's been trained in the skill level to go on and develop, and he's been pushed, and he's knows the game of football. You know what I'm saying? So that might be the difference between a guy being selected maybe late in the second round or late in the third round, just the fact that they played at Georgia, kind of like what Alabama's had here, over the years, because they know Nick Saban has coached in the pros and he knows what it takes. So that's going to help us a lot down the road, recruiting too, because for some reason, some of these clowns in the media have said, well, Kirby can get the players, but they can't develop them. Well, hey, let me just tell you right now, that's gone out the window. So he's a really good teacher, and they do a good technique out there. They really do.
Yeah, we definitely see that a lot in the when I talk to the scouts. They're like, well, a kid from Georgia, he's going to produce. And I think of some of the high schools where you get a kid and that kid may have topped out in high school. You expect him to get to Georgia and get bigger, faster, stronger, and produce more for you because now he's a year older, and it just doesn't happen. Whereas at Georgia, those guys continue to produce in the NFL, and you're right that you have that reputation. Speaking of good reputations, I want to mention our friends over. I'm going to share the screen there for everybody, Dayne, because I thought it was pretty neat. Let me add that one in there, if you would. Yeah. Our friends over at Dead Soxy have produced these fantastic Mardi Gras socks. Today is Fat Tuesday. I know there's parades all over the place. And if you want to look snazzy and you want to look sharp, you can get some of the new Mardi Gras socks that our friends over at Dead Soxy have. They're incredibly comfortable. They have the True Stay technology. And you're like, okay, well, if I order them today, right, I'm not going to get them to wear them tonight to the parade. I get that, but go ahead and get them for next year. Get them for somebody who's a big Mardi Gras fan. Get them for somebody in your family. Grab those fantastic socks. You're going to have all the great comfort that you do with their regular socks, but you get all the masks, the fleur-de-lis, they're just super sharp. Grab some of those when you get a chance. And if you're not, hey, you've got somebody in your family that needs great socks, or you yourself want them, or you're a Georgia fan and you want to wear snazzy socks to work, check out the college line and get the red and black ones from our Georgia line over there at Dead Soxy. So I really appreciate what those guys do.
Happy Fat Tuesday, Dead Soxy.
Happy Fat Tuesday. Speaking of Tuesday, always on Tuesday, be sure to hit your friends over at Your Pie. That's when you get the double points on their app. But today's the first day of March. So what's coming up in 2 weeks from today, 3/14, Pie Day. That's when they do the fantastic giveaways on all their pies. I say giveaways. You can get basically all their pizzas for $3.14. So Pi Day is huge. It has been a wild tradition that they've had for years where you got people lined up out the door. But hey, order on the app. And you don't have to actually do it on that day usually. Usually the Pi Day, they're like, hey, if you want to order today and pick it up tomorrow, you don't have to come in and try to join the madness. But Pi Day is a big deal at EuroPie. $3.14 for one 10-inch pizza. Yeah, it's claim yours from the 14th through the 16th. So you got 3 days to celebrate March 14th. So be sure to mark that in your calendar, mark it in your mind. 3/14 is coming. Pi Day will be here shortly. All right, Dane, let's hit some questions that we got from the DawgVent.
Yeah, let's get back to the Bulldogs in Athens for the upcoming season. New offensive line coach for Georgia, Stacy Searels, returning. He was an offensive line coach under Mark Richt, most recently with Mack Brown at North Carolina, also with him at Texas, but all over the Southeast in college football. So easy question for Coach Donnan from right away on the DawgVent. What do you think of the Searels hire?
Yeah, one of the things that I try to do when analyzing things for this show and looking at it from perspective of what's best for Georgia, how these decisions are made. Basically, you got a deal where you don't need somebody to come in here and reinvent the wheel. I mean, you got a good thing going here. You got established program. You got established players. So one of the things that really always helps a little bit is familiarity. And in the case of Stacy, he has a background of working with Monken at LSU. They worked together under Jimbo Fisher there when they were coaching with Les Miles, and had a national championship team 1 year when Nick, and he didn't go to the pros. So he's had some work with Monken. He's also worked with Coach Muschamp. He's worked with Coach Bobo. He's worked with Coach Hartley. He's worked with Coach BMAC. So he knows these people. He doesn't have to get to find the personality of the program. And also he's been around the head coach. So I think the one thing, it was very salient here, and Radi did a good job of keeping up with all the people that have been interviewed, and I actually brought out the fact that this guy had been hired before anybody else, which I don't know how he did that, but he lucked out as usual. But the thing that really impresses me about this process was the depth that they went into to make sure that they got who they wanted. And regardless of all these different things about it, so-and-so is all for naught, I don't really ever worry about that. I know that the one thing that you got to have from a head coaching perspective is the ability to hire and motivate and develop. And with so much riding on it, there's no way that Kirby would have hired this guy unless he felt like he was the best possible guy to come in here and take the linemen we have, develop the ones that are coming up, and blend in with the staff. The staff is important. Staff morale. Staff, that's one thing that Luke did right off the bat. I mean, he came in and replaced a really good, popular coach, and there might have been some ups and downs, but there's no question. You look the way we played against Baylor in that bowl game with only about 10 practices with the players. I thought it was awesome. So overall, just Stacy's going to come in here. He knows the landscape. You don't have to tell him where Crisp County is. You don't have to tell him where anything. You know, he's got a national reputation. He was All-American lineman at Auburn. He knows what it means to play against Tennessee, against Florida, against Auburn. So a lot of built-in pluses for him. And it's obvious that he wanted to be here because, you know, he had a situation where he coached with a guy that's been on his side for a long time in Mack Brown at Texas and at North Carolina, even though they didn't have a great year this year. But a lot of that had to do with a couple pro court running backs going pro early and all that. But bottom line, I know Kirby, he's not going to body in here unless he feels like that's the best guy for the job. And the other thing is, I feel like the overriding thing was Monken felt comfortable giving the keys to the car offensive line to this guy. If he didn't, there's no way we'd have hired the guy. So that's the way I feel about it.
And I look at it too, that really any offensive line coach, heck, throw me out there. I'm going to look okay if you give me the talent that Georgia has at offensive line. It should be a unit for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I said that last week, and I'll just remind the people, when he walks in that O-line room and introduces himself to those guys, he's gonna be really feel pretty good. I mean, there's gonna be on that loudspeaker, there's gonna be some James Brown music on there. If he was feeling a little down in the dumps when he got there, I mean, just the eyeball tip. And I want to make sure I don't forget this because I won't be able to remember everything. But last Friday, I was trying to work out something with Kirby on one thing with his son who's playing tennis and everything. And I went over there to make sure that was and see him in person. And they were actually having their all-season program where they're doing agility drills and, they call it team run, but they do stations and everything. I have never in the history of Jim Donnan, 77 years old, I have never seen any group of athletes like that. Never. I mean,
well, you said that last year, Coach, and they won a title. So.
I mean, that was last year, but these young guys that are in here, and I just want to feel, the past is the past. But I said that more about on the field once they start practicing. But I'm talking about just athletically. If they were getting ready to go and have the best looking team in America, we would win that unequivocally. There's nobody that looks any better than us athletically. Now we got some holes on our defense. We got to do all these things. I'm just talking about big, fast kids that can run and enjoy it and are working their ass off. I mean, after I left that building and got in my car, I just sat there for a minute. I said, this guy's got a monster here now.
Jealousy is ugly, Coach.
I wasn't jealous. I promise you, I wasn't jealous. I was just glad that every day I get to watch these guys from however how long I got. It's going to be pretty dang good. Good kids, hard workers, good support staff over there, and that building, the way they finished it up with the meeting rooms and the cafeteria. They actually gonna call it a restaurant, like Bones is the name, for dog bones. They're gonna call it Bones or something like that. But just another little coup de grace to add to the program, that rest of that building. So I don't know what's next for them, but we got the championship. Now we got to do it over again. But we got a good base. I promise you this, Rodney and Dayne, we got a good base to start with. I mean, a real good base.
Well, we saw that when some scouts went to before the season started, and Georgia's facing Clemson. Scouts went to Clemson the week before the game, and then they came to Georgia. They're telling the Georgia guys, like, wow, you guys are bigger, faster, stronger than Clemson. And showed out in the game. You won the whole thing. All right, next question, Dayne.
This one's for me. Coach, how would 20-year-old Coach Donnan, the quarterback at NC State, how would he fare in a practice with these UGA guys currently?
I would really have to use my acumen. I would hope that we wouldn't be in a hurry up offense, so I could think a little bit about it at the line of scrimmage. But I would have to really do some. I think I could throw on them, but I don't know how good I could move in the pocket. But that's a tough question.
Here comes Nolan.
but I told Radi one time after I was out there and watching our D line rush the passer, and I was behind the line, and I was thinking about how you gonna block these guys. I mean, just really got some good D linemen that are leaving, but we got some good offensive linemen moving up. But as far as me playing at this level now, I don't know about that. I mean, I'd give it a try. I really would, because me, I'm a competitive guy. You know what I used to say, don't you?
What?
I'll take any man from any land, any game that he can name, for any amount that he can count on any day that he can play. Now that was back in the day. Now I can't do that, but I used to try to play a lot of things.
I love it. I'm getting friends at the 7-6 put that on a T-shirt.
I like to compete, but these guys throw for more yards in a game than I did in like the whole season now. But I know one thing: if it got close, I would call split over change, 32 ride pass, wide deep cross. See if it worked. And close my eyes and throw it up to Harry Martell and hope he catch it.
We were talking about defensive line, so this is a good question for that. Urban Meyer's heartburn is the handle on the vent that asked this question.
One of my favorite posters. Yes.
Who is going
Urban
to be
Meyer's heartburn?
Yes, Urban Meyer's heartburn asks, who's going to be the player that will benefit from not transferring like Robert Beal was this past season?
From not transferring?
Yeah. A guy that maybe in certain circumstances would transfer for more playing time, but is staying around and could be rewarded.
100% William Poole. I mean, he'll be fighting for a lot of. He could go places and play, but he knows right now what his role is, and I feel like he would be a guy that stays here that's going to really help us.
I'm going to go Marcus Roseby, Jack Saint.
See, I didn't think he would be transferring. I thought he got a pretty good amount of PT.
He got some, but I mean, that's a guy you saw more and more passes go to freshman guys, and he could have pulled a Jermaine Burton and said, "Look, I'm going to go to an offense that throws a lot more." He's got that. He came back from the injury. That's a guy who I'm not saying he was going to transfer, but he could have, and he didn't. So I think that's a guy that blows up next year.
I'll stay at the same position. I'll say Karis Jackson, and I say that because I actually heard his name of like, hey, this is a guy that could be someone that does transfer. And he didn't. He's sticking around, and I think he's a valuable piece for Georgia.
Huge.
There was a question about Karis Jackson. Let me scroll and find this one. Or maybe we'll get back to it because here it is. Will we see a re-emergence of Karis Jackson at wide receiver in 2022? Played a great first half of 2020 and really hasn't done as much since with injuries playing a big role. That question from What You Got, Lauren?
Absolutely. Absolutely, he will be a big part, and I think Blaylock too, but not maybe as much as we'll see from Karis, just because he just went into the year with every time I saw him, just a little bit bummed up with his knee. Never felt really good about it, but I just feel like he'll have a big year, and Mitchell will. Mitchell's confidence has got to be out the gate the way he's played in big games. And his route running will continue to improve, and we'll be good at wide receiver. And you add Smith in there, and it's just going to be an 84. Come on, we're going to be good there, but we're going to be. If you ever thought about something that just made you feel like something that makes you feel like it just signifies greatness, is the Concorde. That plane, the Concorde, was that we're going to have the Concorde of tight ends that you've ever seen. It's going to be like the epitome, and Eric Gilbert would be a hybrid guy that could be either one. I talked about last week about him being out there, but and I just bragged about how good we looked. He looks. He's on the scale of the top 5 guys looking on the hoof that we got out there. So he'll be really good for us.
I do want to touch on real quick on Karis Jackson. All year long we kept saying in our watch along, he's going to take this one to the house. He's going to take this one to the house. And he came 6 inches, a shoestring tackle away a couple times. Even if he doesn't blow up on offense, I think he's going to be he's
great kick returner.
He's going to break some off in this upcoming season, especially when you look at the competition he'll be facing.
So so can Kenny Mack on kickoff returns.
Great point. Yeah,
we got a good guy there, and another guy that I think is just going to have breakout year is Milton. Just every down type back that, he's been kind of snake bitten about the injuries, but what a good kid he is. I mean, you talking about something when he walks in the room, he just lights up. I mean, you can't beat that. Beside the fact that great talent. I mean, he's got that it factor as far as being a team guy, and I think he'll splatter some people this year.
I'm laying down my marker, 1,157 yards.
I would say over.
Okay. I bet you dinner on it.
He's not going to have to share it as much. He's going to be.
I'm going to give him 1157.
That'd be good. We'll take that. But, and the thing about this show is we're optimistic and everything, but it's
with reason.
Yeah, I mean, and we should be, but we can always remember the story of Sheriff Bill. And the thing that, for people that don't remember it, is Sheriff Bill would always say it could be worse, And the bottom line is he was a sheriff up in West Virginia in Logan County, and no matter what happened, it could be worse. So one day, two of the young deputies went out and were called out to a trailer park, and there was a man and a woman led together, had both been shot, and there was a guy sitting in a chair with a gun to him. And so he said, it's pretty obvious this guy came home, found his wife in bed, shot them both, killed himself. It's a double homicide and a suicide. So let's close it up. Do that. We got to call Bill out here. We can't call Bill out here. Said all he'll say is it could be worse. It could be worse. And he said, I'm so tired of hearing that. He said, look, he's a sheriff. We got a triple homicide here. We got to bring him out here. So they bring Bill out there, and Bill comes driving up in his big car with a siren on and drives in there. And they said, well, here's what happened, Bill. This guy came home, found his wife in bed, killed them both, killed himself. It's a double homicide and a suicide. He said, yep, but it could be worse. And they said, what do you mean, Bill? I said, you say that every time. He said, look, if that guy would have come home yesterday, that would have been me in bed with her. So let's always talk on this show of Sheriff Bill. It could be worse, but it really is. I think it's going to be really good.
I'm with you 100%.
I don't know how to transition from that.
That's my joke today. It could be worse. Sheriff Bill.
It could be worse. It could be worse. Speaking of our friends over at Academia Brewing Company.
That's how you do it.
Exactly. You could have worse beer or worse time than going over to Academia and having fantastic beer, fantastic food, and a fantastic car show this coming Sunday at noon. A car show. So they have these great classic cars. Of course, they had that badass bus over there that they ride around in with its giant engine in it. You hear it chugging along. It's badass. But come out to Brunch and Brew. And while you're out there, you can marvel at some of the best vintage cars in Athens at the Academia Brewing Company this Sunday. They actually they do it the first Sunday of every month. They have great cars out there. But this Sunday will be the first Sunday of March from 12 to 4. They're going to have these fantastic cars out there. And of course, you can get all their different beers. Speaking of different beers, they have a new one called Little Marmalade. And it's part of their sour syllabus line. It's one of the more tangy ones. They has tangerine and lulo fruit, whatever that is. It's very citrus beer. It's tart ale, and it's if you like those sours, hit up the folks at Academia Brewing Company. But again, they have the car show this Sunday at noon. It's really cool to see all those cars lined up in the parking lot. So if you're a gearhead, you like vintage cars, you like classic cars, you like the hot rods and stuff like that, swing by our friends at Academia Brewing Company and check them out when you get a chance. And if you're on that side of town, you're basically Coach's 9 iron away from our friends over at Athens Ford. You can swing by there and get a new or pre-owned vehicle. They do have a ton of them. You can actually custom order your next Ford. You can do it online, or you can swing by and do it there in the shop. Close to 200 vehicles on the lot. A lot of places cannot say that. So they're like, we've got 2. So our friends over at Athens Ford are absolutely loaded with new vehicles and pre-owned vehicles. And of course, just about everything you get over there has a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. So you can't miss out on having a great deal. The folks in the showroom there, the salespeople, they are not going to jump up on you like Bela Lugosi, as Dracula, like, hey, how are you, and be all over you. They're going to let you come in, take your time, and they'll be there to answer your questions. It's no hard sale. They're just there to make your experience go as smoothly as possible. So check out our friends at Athens Ford. They will take great care of you. Let them know we sent you. We'd greatly appreciate that. And support folks who support the University of Georgia Bulldogs, because that's exactly what Athens Ford and Academia Brewing Company do.
Was that a limited fake cordial Dracula impression?
Yeah. Bela Lugosi. I miss that guy.
Another question from What You Got, Lauren, on the DawgVent. Do you think the talent of Dumas Johnson, Munden, and Sori can overcome the experience of Tresman Marshall and Ryan Davis at inside linebacker? Out of those 5, who will be the 3 that will end up playing like a Dean Tyndall and Quay Walker?
Good question.
That's all just a crapshoot there. I think those 2 young guys, Washington and Walker, are going to be in the mix pretty quick too. I would say one of those will be in the top 3 more than likely, just because of his skill set. But Munden has got a lot on the ball. Dumas has done really well in the games. So, I mean, let's just watch spring a little bit, and then they're all got the kind of skill level to help us, because as we've mentioned so many times on the show, you don't play a game in the phone booth anymore where teams run I pro right and I slot left. I mean, there's wide formations. You got to be able to cover backs. You got to be able to play in space, and you got to be able to run inside out and make tackles. So speed is a real key factor there, and knowledge of the system, because there's a lot on the plate, maybe on a linebacker more than any position on our team, almost as much as a quarterback, as far as getting your team lined up, making the calls, making the checks. So experience that they've had will give them a little bit of an edge on Walker and Washington, but the fact that they're here now all spring is going to help too. And the other thing that's going to challenge them is they're going to be going against a really talented offensive team led by a quarterback that's going to put them in a lot of bad situations as far as the plays they run against them, because Stetson's going to be able to get them in the right call. And so they're going to have to make defensive plays from a defense that maybe isn't set up to stop that play because the quarterback checked it off. So Will's abilities will be fairly quickly.
This question from Blocker 57, and I'm going to give a quick prelude to this because his question starts with, if Amazon offered Kirby Smart $1 billion to become an announcer, which the context for that is that Amazon apparently threw a lot of money at Troy Aikman, who potentially, coach, your old player, he could be going to Monday Night Football on ESPN. We'll see. A lot of money involved. And then Sean McVay apparently used some of the media interview stuff to get a raise from the Rams. He's going to stay there. And now it looks like the target's on Kirk Herbstreit, friend of our program, to potentially do some Thursday Night Football for NFL if the money's right. So that's the context for like media money and coaching. But Blocker 57 says, if Amazon offered Kirby Smart $1 billion to become an announcer, and he reluctantly agrees, which I don't know about reluctance there, what coach would UGA target to replace him? In other words, not necessarily for UGA, but who's the next coach on the rise, according to Jim Donnan?
Boy, I'm just I really don't know what the answer to that one would be, because but I would say that they really are throwing some ridiculous, and Romo started it when, he had them by where he could either leave or not, and he's making $18 million for doing like 14 games here, plus the playoffs. And I'm sure that they might have offered McVay a lot, but as far as the coach on the rise, I really don't know anybody. I'll have to think about that, because I don't want to be unfair to some other guys, but certainly there's some good young coaches out there, but fortunately we got one here in Kirby. But do you worry about, I would worry about people it's just recruiting has just become such a prevalent thing that, all the time you're working on new guys and you got guys coming in, and it's just you got guys that want to come here from the West Coast for an unofficial visit, and you can't really put them up and you can't fly them in here, but they want to come. And they say, well, I'm going somewhere else. And, if they're going somewhere else, how are they getting there? So you don't know what the deal is. But I would say if anybody's going to stay where he is, it'd be Kirby, just because his family and his background and all. But I don't think we have to worry about that. Now, if they offered him $1 billion, I would say, hey, Kirby, you probably need to take it.
I wouldn't say that he's a coach on the rise anymore, but just to throw a name out there, because I think it's late for that distinction. But Dave Aranda, I think, is a guy that, for what he did at Baylor last year, with a roster that I don't think was as good as they ended up, he outperformed the talent he had, is what I'm saying. So I think that's a potential guy.
He's definitely a good coach.
How's that? Who's the guy at Coastal Carolina that blew up?
Jamie Chadwell.
Yeah, he got Jamie Chadwell that did well at Charleston, and now is doing well there. He's got an offensive coordinator that actually played a little bit at Clemson, Willie Corn, that's getting a lot of press for the offense they run. But certainly Jamie's done well. He probably got close on a couple jobs here, and I'm sure if he continues to do it. And you see that in basketball, these mid-level coaches go from there to maybe a little quicker than, say, an assistant coach in a big program. It seems to be a trend to hire some of these assistant coaches. When you look at Aranda getting hired and Brent Venables at Oklahoma, there's a trend along those lines.
The other thing, Coach, that I'd say, I think you're totally spot on with recruiting, that it's almost at an unsustainable level for someone to do that work that way for such a long period of time. But there's such little patience in athletic departments, and some of that's based off of, media deals and money and things. Like Vince Dooley would not have won the 1980 national championship if current sensibilities were in the way that it was then, because he wouldn't have been allowed to stay that long. There were seasons that just weren't going to be performing at the standard of what people expect today. That leash is just so short.
Yeah, who knows? But I'm definitely the poster child on that about not being able to win quick enough here, so I didn't do it. So, even though we were making some progress, but I think it's just a lot of it has to do with your administration, who you got to beat, how they're doing. One thing's for sure, the level of competition in the East right now isn't like it used to be.
No,
Kirby's made it so a lot, but also you've had an unbelievable turnover in the coaching ranks at some of these places. We look at the number of coaches at Tennessee since Fulmer's been there. It's just incredible. And you see that around other programs too. But what else we got here?
Two more questions from the DawgVent. This one from Andy Stowe. I've seen a lot of people talking about Amarius Mims moving inside to guard. Do you think that happens, or do you think he stays at tackle? And do you think he starts this year?
He's not a natural guard. He's just so big. Of course, Ben Cleveland was big. You just have to see who the best five are and what you can do. But he's certainly within the realm of being one of our best potential players. But a lot of it has to do with knowledge of system. A lot like Broderick got a lot better this year once he, felt a lot more comfortable with it, with everything. So got a new coach coming in, might do some new technique, but he's got a really good chance of being in the mix somewhere in our front five.
And then our final question from the DawgVent. Roddy may have more after. We'll see if time allows. From HugDog18 says, Coach, I hope you and your family are well, and I'm so thankful for your engagement with our dog community. Can you talk about the daily schedules of student athletes and what they face during the off season? Are their hours at the Butts Mayer building limited? Thank you, and go Dogs.
Well, they certainly go through a tough process being a student athlete, whether you're a tennis player, baseball player, or whatever it might be, golfer. Football players in the off season usually come over there in the morning and have some type of lift 4 days a week, upper body one day, lower body, and then skip it. And then they'll have a class schedule, and then they'll come back in the afternoon, and they allow you 8 hours a week to have meetings and off-season program now, which I think are good. So maybe they might have 30 minutes of a meeting, then an hour and a half of conditioning, and then on their own, like 2 days a week, they'll do 7-on-7. The coaches can't be out there with a ball. And then they have tutoring that's scattered throughout the day based on if it's an individual deal. And if you're not a really good student, you might have a mandatory study hall. But certainly it's a busy schedule for them, that's for sure. And then you couple in if they got any kind of treatment to rehab themselves or go to the training room. But there's plenty of things to do over there. I mean, they got a tremendous lounge for the players. It's got big TVs, it's got all these different video games and pool tables, ping pong tables, all that. So if they got downtime, they can hang out over there and feel good about it.
Radi, do you have any questions you want to sneak in? Because that wraps up what we have from the.
No, I did. We have one from Dog Rules with a Z. It says, Coach, I want to know who is your best and worst hires were.
I don't think he's going to come out here and say his worst hire.
Well, it's a rhetorical question on my worst one. I mean, anybody watching the DawgVent would know who that was. I won't say who it was, but his initials were KR. But as far as my best hire, I really don't know. I had a lot of good coaches. I had, 6 guys that coached for me went on to be head coaches, and a couple of them have gone on and had really good pro careers too. But I definitely know who my worst one was.
Well, you've had a lot of assistants that are still, plugging along right now, doing great work. Rodney Garner has been doing this forever. Doug Marrone with Alabama last year. So, I mean, the network of people that you had even then still making waves in college football right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just waiting for. I mean, in the last month, we've had Mike Bobo and BMAC and Stacy Searels, and I got my phone ready. Say, hey, Coach, when you coming up here? I know where the blood smear is. I'm going to be the analyst over there for to analyze. You remember that movie, Analyze This, when they had Robert De Niro. I mean, I'm going to go over there and analyze everybody for him.
Coach is going to be the analyst. So his job is going to be to do the research on how the analysts are doing their jobs.
You should analyze that restaurant they got over there, Coach. Be sure they do quality control on the food.
Yeah, they see me coming. They have a tendency to kind of move away because they're afraid I'm going to talk to them or something. But they're good about it. I enjoy going over there occasionally just to be around ball. I mean, if you're a ball coach, you're a ball coach. And you know what I mean? You just enjoy being around it. And nothing makes me happier than to have one of my players let me know that he's got a son that's becoming a player. You know what I mean? Just to follow him and watch him come along and see how they do. A lot of them don't make it here, but they go to other places like Aaron Ferguson, the guy that was All-American lineman for me at Marshall. His son just signed to Gardner Webb. I mean, that's a big deal for the kid. He's going to Gardner Webb. Joseph Selfo is the coach. He's Coach Selfo's son, and Trey Lamb's the head coach. So that's great. But I enjoy talking to the players. Y'all know that. That's great for me. And I think one thing that's going to be good here is so many of Kirby's friends that were related to, from the standpoint of being around Bobo and Muschamp and, guys like Brandon Tolbert and Dax Langley. Those are friends of Kirby that are around here now that they'll relate to Bobo and them being here too. That'll be good. And people say, I read on this once in a while, I cut on that DawgVent. I try to stay away from it because it pisses me off. But I see where people, I see where they're getting the old gang back. What's wrong with that? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. You got people you can trust that can help you. I mean, it worked pretty well with Will Muschamp, I'd say, don't you think? I mean, anybody says I mean, right now that was a tremendous hire getting him in here, and it turned out to be great based on what happened with Scott Cochran. And I'm glad Scott's back and things are working out for him and his family. But Muschamp coming in here was huge for us last year. I'm talking about gigantic.
Yeah,
Coaches said coaches move out of the way when they see you coming because you might talk to them or something. Really what it is it's these offensive coaches. They heard you on the show saying, hey, I can still spin it better than all you can. Buster Faulkner don't want to get in that competition. Mike Bobo doesn't want you to get that football in your hands.
Yeah. Well, I can – I'll tell you what, I'm old and all that, but anybody that would ever question whether I could spin it or not needs to go smoke some serious spot. Serious spot. Because I can spin it and I can still spin it. And I can't throw those BBs. I can't throw it hard and knock a rock, knock the wall down. But I promise you, if it was 3rd and 6 and we had to have it, I could deliver.
There it is. Speaking of 3rd 6, we are up against the wall here. We got to move the chains to next week. We'll be back next Tuesday with a recap of the combine. I'm about to bolt out of here to catch a flight to Indianapolis. We will have a ton of stuff at UGASports.com. Be sure to check out this YouTube channel because we're going to try to record every interview we do up there, and we'll have them free on the YouTube channel for you to watch.
Right.
We'll have written content.
Ask James Cook if he's changed his cell phone for me, will you? Can you do that?
I can absolutely can.
Just FaceTime them real fast.
I'm going to have you send me a list of questions for these guys that'll get them cracked up. It's so funny to watch them because they're looking at all these reporters and they get a little nervous. And then if you bust them up a little bit, all of a sudden they relax and they're ready for it. So we'll have all those guys, all those interviews on this channel coming up. So be sure to tune in over the next coming days as we have a ton of interviews. So anyway, we'll talk to you next Tuesday for our friends over at Academia Brewing Company, Your Pie, Dead Soxy, and Athens Ford. And, of course, Classic City Eats. We appreciate their sponsorship, and we appreciate your patronage of our sponsors. It means a lot to us.